What's up, Internet? It is the end of day 4 here in Delirium League, and we didn't get... Well, we actually got a lot done, but some of it happened in the morning off stream, and then I wasn't able to stream until pretty late tonight. We only got to stream for a few hours, but it was still an incredibly productive day because we had insane luck. As you saw in the day 3 video, when I did the Delirium Orb map, we had an Exalt drop. I had 4 more Exalts drop in the next hour. I don't think I've had luck like that in a long time. Not since Legion, and even then I don't know if I ever had 5 Exalts in the same 2-hour time span like that. So we put them to good use and immediately got into a pair of Circle of Anguish rings. I paid 5 Exalts for the pair of these in total. I paid 2 Exalts for this one, I think, and then 3 for this one. We also spent maybe 7 or 8 Divine Orbs. This one was really I got this one in 2 Divines. I got a pretty good roll on that one. And then this one I think I've put 4 or 5 Divines into, and that was the best roll I got, so we stuck with that. I don't think any of my other gear has changed since yesterday, except that. But this is a big change, right? This was a massive DPS increase for us. Even our tooltip is at 130 per totem, but we get up to 277 per totem tooltip. Obviously it's much higher than that in practice because we've got flammability, wave of conviction, fire penetration support, our flasks, things like that. So we're definitely over 500,000 I think per totem in practice, so we're cooking. And that actually allowed us, if you noticed, we had this Perfidy chest plate, and we're almost out of splinters because we ran a few Delirium Orb maps, finished up our stack of splinters, and went into the Simulacrum completely blind. I hadn't watched any videos or anything like that, and it was interesting, right? I don't know if I thought it was amazing, but it was okay. I definitely feel like you need to be cautious about going in there. It was pretty tough. I did manage to full clear on my first try. I'm gonna go ahead and upload the entire stream footage in a separate video. I'll probably start doing that right after I upload this. I think I died 4 times in there. I died once just to a random wave, and then I encountered a boss on the second to last wave that I had never seen before, and the layout of that area was extremely bad. The actual arena that I was fighting in, and so pair that with him having wave 19 level buff, so we were at 95% delirium plus a whole map modifiers worth of stack. It's bad, and there's a bunch of modifiers that appear in there that don't appear on maps, giving them maim, impale, lots of damage penetration, things like that. It was really sketchy, but we did manage to full clear it. What I thought was odd was that when it ended, nothing happened, right? You finished it and it's just nothing at all happens. You don't learn anything at all about that character. I have no idea what the Simulacrum is, who that character is. The only hint that I could tell, maybe I'll learn more if I watch the footage back, was that he's referenced as the strangely familiar character inside there, and he makes a claim that he's me, right? He's like, I'm you or whatever, but nothing is explained. And then you finish the last wave and you think, oh, something should happen here, but nothing happens. He just disappears. Doesn't even say anything. That was pretty awkward, but we did get the cool chest piece. It doesn't look like it's super valuable. I'm probably just gonna hold on to it for a while and see if somebody makes the build where it turns out this is super powerful, and then people are going to want it more. It's only worth 20 or 25 chaos right now, I think. But it looks like it might be pretty good, right? Pretty big buff to banners, and allows you to carry 2 banners at the same time. That seems like it'd be good. So it might just be undervalued because people don't know about it yet, At least not about how good it is, or isn't. I'm not sure. Instead of running a map today, I think what we'll do is talk about the Development Manifesto that they released. They released this today while I was busy before I got to sit down and stream again. And there's some stuff to go over here. I can definitely imagine that some people aren't necessarily happy with this. I was a little bit surprised at some of the things in here. So the first part about delirium monster damage, right? As you travel deeper into the mist, the life damage and rewards from monsters becomes higher. Players have commented that they feel the monsters become too dangerous deep in the encounters. The monster damage bonus scales up to 30% increase at the absolute most. We are reviewing all the delirium monsters and skills to find any that are overtuned, and we'll be making adjustments to any that might be dealing disproportionate damage. I have a feeling that they're, I don't think they're bluffing on this, right? What I think's happening is that as monsters gain health, and I mentioned we had this discussion in 3.9, right? People were saying, oh, it's not going to matter that they buff monster health. We're still going to just one-shot them. But there are a lot of cases where, like, as soon as you cross a threshold of EHP in monsters, they start getting to hit you when they never got to hit you before. They're literally going from never touching you to hitting you. And even if it's just once, if you take a whole monster pack like that, the damage, like the incoming damage increase is like catastrophic, right? So there's a big difference between enemies that you just kill before they can hurt you and enemies that will guarantee get at least one tack off on you. So on some level, I don't even know if they need to scale monster damage in this way at all, right? If you scale monster health enough, and they do, by the way, in Delirium, at the high end of Delirium, at 100% Delirium, their monster health is crazy, right? That's an EHP multiplier that I've never seen before, outside of maybe it's like this in like super deep delve, but most players don't do that. So this is a very new level of EHP for them. So maybe they just don't need to do this. Maybe the answer is they don't scale monster damage, and they just scale between the effects that you can't stop, and the on-kill effects and the apparition attacks that happen when you aggro some monsters like rares. Maybe that's enough. The fact that they're going to live longer and probably going to get attacks off on you that they wouldn't have otherwise, maybe that just replaces the need for this. But I will say that I don't feel like it's the actual damage of things that is out of control in Delirium. So adjustments to like individual skill damage specifically is not that important to me. Rewards bar. When you touch the Mirror of Delirium, a random reward type is chosen for the encounter. When you kill a certain number of monsters, you earn an additional instance of that reward type when the encounter finishes. Currently, the rate at which that reward bar fills up is not proportional to the depth of monsters you are fighting. Monsters deeper in the mist do not fill it up faster. We felt this was appropriate for release because the other rewards that the League grants, like Cluster Jewels and Delirium Orbs, etc., do all encourage you to kill as many monsters as possible, which promise clearing as deep into the fog as you could. We were considering having the reward bar fill up more quickly as you kill deeper monsters, but didn't have the change ready in time for launch. We plan to make this change in the near future. And it says, at the time of publishing, we just found an issue where in many areas delirium monsters and spawners, which are the ground things, the little things you can walk over, do not appear when extremely deep in the mist. And I've seen that too, right? This is going to be a good change. I don't think it's going to fix the core issue of there are certain reward types that just are not valuable right now. If you get a weapon or an armor or a talisman reward type, the correct response is probably to just immediately close the mirror, right? Just fast forward it and skip it, because those reward types don't have the potential to be that rewarding. And it's certainly not worth dealing with the incredible amount of threat you're going to face in a mirror compared to the regular map to get some rare weapons, right? Even though they can sometimes drop temple weapons and things like that, it's still not good enough. I think the problem is in the reward types and less so in the amount of loot. You can tell this because the scarab, right, or the currency reward types are pretty rewarding. The scarab one's, I hope people aren't going to want to hear this, the scarab one is probably too good. I ran into scarab rewards multiple times during my simulacrum, which you're going to see, and one of the waves dropped like 14 or 15 scarabs. That seems like a lot to me. I don't know. But there's too many reward types, I think, that are the problem here. So this will help. I mean, it'll be nice to get more rewards for killing deeper, like into the fog. But I think there's going to have to be some changes to what the reward types are. Like, I don't even know if it's necessary to have weapon and armor reward types outside of the low-level stuff. Paralyzing, wasting, eroding, and diluting touch debuffs. We are reducing the length of these debuffs so that they are substantially shorter, which will also greatly reduce the quantity that accumulates on you. This change is likely to be in today's 3.10.0c patch, which is already deployed at this time. If you're watching this video, this patch is already live for you. The only thing I'm going to say about this is that I think it is either wasted. It's one of these last three, right? That nerfs recovery on you. I think this debuff just needs to be deleted. This doesn't affect me particularly because I play like a totem build at range, but that debuff completely mauls the recovery of any melee character. And in particular, like builds like RF just die, right? That is not a stat I think you can safely modify. Players are reliant on that stat way too much to where you can just like shut off their recovery outside of, in the case of something like Cirrus, who has that stat on the ground effect, that's easier to avoid. You can just step out of it. If you can see it anyway, and we're going to get to that in a minute, but having them be on hit debuffs as they are, I think is a non-starter, and I think the recovery one just needs to go. Monster on death effects, the hot topic, right? Currently, there's a random chance for individual Delirium monsters to have a mod that causes on death effects. We are internally experimenting with moving these to be pack-based, so there's more variance in when you encounter them, rebalancing them around this, and improving how they are signaled. For those interested in why we use on death effects in content like this, it's because they are a viable way of making monsters that are killed instantly have an effect on players, and they aren't trivialized by clear speed. Few to no other mods we can put on these monsters make any difference normally because they are eradicated by powerful builds in seconds. We're going to be toning these down either way. So this first change here, where it says we are internally experimenting with moving these to be pack-based, I think this is going to be more impactful than people realize, right? People just want these effects to go away entirely, and I don't personally agree with that. I think that's probably the wrong way to go. I don't mind on death effects. They do force you to react to certain things, but the issue is going to be, they mentioned improving how they are signaled, which is really important. When they change these things to be pack-based, it's going to make it to where you're going to go multiple packs without having to worry about that. And then when you do encounter a pack, it needs to be clear that you're dealing with a pack that is going to self-kill itself, have some kind of on-death effect. And then you're going to react with movement to that one pack, but then you can keep going, right? Right now, because it's affecting individual monsters, you're going to get, on average, like 1 to 2 of these every pack. And so it feels like there's never any time or any, like, viable option but to keep moving, right? So this actually will make a large difference. Once there's, like, separation of multiple packs, it's not going to feel as stressful. Here's my concern. They don't mention at all the apparition attacks. And I think this is the other element, like the other side of the coin that is making Delirium so stressful. Every time you aggro an enemy, it has a chance for an apparition attack too. And I think it's guaranteed on rares and magic monsters, at least rare monsters. I know this much because earlier on stream today, I watched a volatile Flameblood spawn at the edge of my screen, get halfway to me, and then it actually stopped and did an apparition attack and then kept going and kept chasing me. So these apparition attacks, every time you aggro a rare, they're self-stunning, right? So the rare freezes and then an apparition takes it over and does an attack. You can't stop this, right? If you freeze and shatter that rare, it doesn't matter because the attack is like, the apparition is taking over the rare to do it. There's too many of these. This needs to not be guaranteed. There's way too many of these. It's dangerous to move forward and it's dangerous to move backwards. And there's way too much stress in both directions. You can't loot, you can't run forward. That other side of it needs to be addressed too. There's just way too many apparition attacks and there's way too many on death effects. They need to be spread out. They can still be incredibly dangerous, but they need to be more signaled and they need to not be as common so that there is a chance where you can just clear normally and loot normally, and then you have to deal with one of these effects. You can change your gameplay briefly and then go back to regular gameplay to some extent. There's just way too much of this stuff. It's not just about signaling. It's about the pace. The cadence of a Delirium event sucks. That's the problem. It is way too high stress, and there's no waveform to it. It's just a constant line that slopes upward. If they don't address that, I think this content's going to burn people out because it's way too high stress. It's constant. The pace of it has to be adjusted. So Delirium alongside previous content. Delirium increases the difficulty and reward of all their Path of Exile content. However, players have reported that it doesn't feel worthwhile to run past content under the effects of Delirium because you lose precious time dealing with that content's overheads. We plan to add bonus time to the Delirium event when you trigger past content in order to make up for this. The amount of bonus time will vary from content to content to make it fair. This is also a good change. Like, right now, in a Delirium event, I would never stop to deal with like Cassia or Alva. The problem is, I think adding bonus time is not going to fix this. It's too abstract. The player is never totally certain, I think, how far they are from the fog catching up and passing them. They just know that if they don't keep going, that can happen. It's not clear enough, right? And so I don't think it's going to ease that pressure in their head of I have to keep moving or the fog is going to get away from me. Honestly, I don't know if I understand why the timer is necessary. The time pressure feels counterintuitive to the threat. And you can kind of see this because neither the simulacrum or the orbs, which should be the more dangerous forms of this content, have a timer. There's no time pressure in them at all. So I don't understand why in the naturally occurring ones, there's such a heavy time pressure element. It would make more sense to me if there was more agency, right? And you just decided how long you were going to be in Delirium. And the threat is that in a naturally occurring mirror, the more you kill, the harder it gets. So you have to then gauge, on the orb maps, activating a blight is incredibly scary, especially right now, because like I said, all those apparition attacks are guaranteed from a rare. Guess what spawns out of tons, like in a blight map or in a blight event, tons of rares come out of those portals. It's 10 times more dangerous than any blight on a map. They'll be teleporting monsters directly on top of you. They'll be doing long-range attacks that'll happen off screen. I just don't know what value the time pressure has when you can see that they removed it in the other forms of the content. I just think they should just straight up remove it. I think the map should be just covered in Delirium, and the player is going to have to make a decision. Like, the thing that separates it from an orb is that you have no control over the difficulty. You have to decide right then, can I keep killing and can I keep going, or do I have to get out? Right? So I don't know. This will help, but I don't think players are going to feel this because they just don't know how close they are to failing to make that judgment call right then. I think they're still going to run right past things like Alva and Cassia outside of the orb maps where this isn't even a consideration. I don't know. They need to make a design decision there, I think. But I think it favors just removing the timer altogether. Delirium item drop vacuuming. We totally understand the feedback that Delirium makes you want to go fast and not pick up items, requiring you to then backtrack to grab anything decent that dropped. There have been requests to accumulate all items that would drop and instead drop them at the end of the encounter. This is not how we want the game to be played. We've only done it in the past when it would have been impossible to access items afterwards, like if they're in an incursion area or in the darkness during a delve. While it's tempting to take every opportunity to vacuum up all the items that drop and present them to you in one go, that is not how the core game loop of action RPG should function. I'm going to pause right here for a second. This phrase, that is not how the core game loop of an action RPG should function, this game has no room to be uttering that sentence. Sorry. That's not for you. Like, you guys make all kinds of errors in that, so I'd be careful about how authoritative you state that. In addition, even if we wanted to, it's not really even practical to vacuum an entire map worth of items and drop them in one place. During our internal testing before release, we increased the length of time that Delirium encounters last so that players have extra time to pick up items as they go. Items filters help alert you to which items are important to grab, and we did intentionally compensate with extra time. I like the item filter comment too, considering that's not part of the core game. This part, I have to say, raised my eyebrow a little bit. right? Again, we have to come back to the idea that why is there a time pressure here at all? Why is there time pressure for me to decide whether to wait out dangerous enemy effects so that I can just pick up a piece of loot? Why is that a thing? Oh wait, it's not a thing. It's not a thing in Simulacrum, and it's not a thing in an orb delirium map. So why the hell is it a thing in a naturally spawning delirium? The whole problem is the naturally spawned deliriums suck. So if the timer was gone, there wouldn't be that pressure, right? But there is a timer, so why don't you just recognize that you have made it a problem? Like you've designed this problem into the league. It's nonsense. And this idea about how a core, they just implemented tower defense in this game. They have all kinds of loot pinatas. This whole loot vacuuming thing, like how does this make sense in the context of a blighted map? When you finish a blighted map, it literally dumps multiple maps worth of loot right around you. And then there's still tons of things around to go click on to drop more loot. I don't understand this whole paragraph in the context of the rest of their game. It's frankly just nonsense. They have way too much of their own game to redesign if they really believe this. But it's not. This is a rationalization that is not reflective of the state of the actual game. Depth meter. Because the distance from the start of the encounter matters quite a lot for both the relative distance or relative difficulty of the monsters, chance that additional mods are spawned, and the level of increased item drops rarity that you receive, we are considering adding an indicator that in the user interface which shows the relative difficulty. So they're just saying they want to show a meter that shows you how far you are into the fog, which is probably a good thing. But it'd be easier to do, and it would make more sense, again, if there was not a time pressure element to the league mechanic at all, right? But that's a good thing, I guess, right? It would be good to know exactly like how much more powerful monsters are at any given time. Because I mentioned before that the mechanic is obtuse, right? I've said this in past, just a couple days ago, right? Where players aren't necessarily noticing, like they'll fight a pack, but then they might have to run some distance to get to the next pack. And that, just in that gap, may be enough of a difficulty increase where those monsters no longer get one shot, and suddenly they all get to hit the player once. And it just feels like everything's changed, right? It just feels too sudden. So it would probably be good to know. Performance. It looks like we broke something with 3.10. Yes, it does. We don't know what it is yet. We are investigating. We'll fix it. This is a high priority, and we're really sorry that it was released like that. We're unaware of the issue from our internal testing, but became quickly aware of it upon launch. Annoyingly, it affects some computers a lot more than others. We now have a couple of computers in the office that reliably reproduce problems, so we're using those to debug it. Yeah, I mean, this sucks, and I think is one of the worst things about this patch and the League Start launch. Some really, really nasty performance issues. I heard that there was a security patch for Intel CPUs right around the time this game came out, or this patch came out. So they may need to do some investigating specifically into Intel CPUs and see if any of the AMD CPU setups are reproducing it. My guess is that it has something to do with that. Whatever it is, there's definitely like a terrible CPU load issue. And everybody I talked to did have an Intel CPU that I talked to. But whatever it is, whenever they're doing certain asset loading, it's causing full-on 100% CPU pegs. So it needs to be fixed. It is definitely really hurting my enjoyment of this league. Visibility. This is another one that, like, man. We have various ideas how to improve visibility, such as investigating improving color grading, adding clearer effects to monsters with mods, improving skill effects, and so on. We don't know exactly which set of these experiments will be deployed yet, but we do want to make it easier to see what's going on. Expect to see some improvements soon. This, like this up here, I feel like this is kind of frustrating to read because this has been an issue for multiple leagues, right? But it's gotten worse. I feel like we didn't have this issue that much. It's not that bad in Delve, although it's kind of bad with the blue on Azurite nodes. But there's a lot of different color areas in Delve, and there's a lot of different color monster attacks. And then in Incursion, I don't feel this at all. Incursion is full of color. in contrast. It was only recently, right? Even Legion 2, right? You have these all these different colors that represent the different monster types. So just seeing yellow, you're like, oh, Mariketh, I know that this might be more dangerous than if it was just orange and Kari. But then we got to Betrayal. And then the Katarina fight. And it was just like green on green on green on green. And nobody could see anything. And then it feels like it's gotten worse. Right? Metamorph was black goop on black goop with black attacks. Never mind that it was stuttery as heck. You couldn't see anything. It was too fast and too one color. And now we've somehow gotten into a whole league where everything's black and gray. Guys, it's going the wrong direction. Like, and people have been complaining about this all year, it feels like. And now, I mean, as soon as you saw the trailer, it was like, that fog's not going to help. And everything's kind of the same color. And that's where we're at. What I will say is that the biggest problem as it stands specifically with Delirium is just the amount of noise. There is way too, and I don't mean like audio, I just mean visual noise. Between the fog and the fact that there are so many on-kill and on-aggro apparition attacks all overlapping each other, there's no visual clarity whatsoever. They have to space out those effects so that I can see them, right? They cannot all be going off that frequently. That has to be addressed, or what colors they use isn't going to matter. What does it matter if they're red instead of gray, but there's 8 of them going off at once, and they all have different visuals? It'll just be a big mishmash of different spell effects, and all I'll know is that, I don't know, everything on that side of the screen I better get away from, probably, right? So, clarity involves more than color. It's going to involve some reducing of visual noise. And they're going to make the button bindable for you to end Delirium, because Ziz, as he runs straight in a line, walking over every volatile explosion pack, couldn't end the event fast enough. So the summary, monster damage, nerfing on a case-by-case basis. I actually don't think this isn't going to matter that much, right? It's the least of our worries, I think. Rewards, the way they're talking about improving the rewards, I think, isn't going to matter. Like, it will make, technically, at least the naturally spawning ones more rewarding. I guess it won't change the Delirium maps that use orbs on because they're at a fixed rate. But the issue is more in the reward types, right? We need to see some cleaning up of armor and weapon and talisman reward types. They're way too common and they're way too weak. People are just going to skip them. On-hit debuffs, good, but that recovery debuff has got to go. You're killing way too much stuff with that debuff. It's way too impactful. And this, on the topic of this, they got to stop introducing brand new debuffs in cases like where there's no time. There's never been as stressful of a league mechanic as Delirium. And what do you expect me to do? Like, go up to the corner of my screen and hover over the tooltip while I'm getting mauled by 20 apparitions and 10 things that are about to explode because I killed them? Like, you can't actually check what the hell's going on. So it doesn't even matter what is applying the debuff. I don't even know what the debuff's doing until I'm dead, right? So there's got to be a lot more consideration to whether the player's even going to have time to tell what's happening to them. On death effects, this is the most important thing, but it's also on death. I really hope they do something with the apparitions because there's way too many of those going off too. I actually think this will help though quite a bit. Past content in Delirium, again, just remove the timer. Like, just fog the whole map and let me figure out if I can handle the scaling. Obviously that's fine enough for the orbs, so I don't know why it's not fine for the natural. I guess maybe they're worried that, like, if it doesn't end in a map, then it damages the value of the orbs, but the orbs add extra reward tabs to the map. So of course I'd want to do it. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is, really. Item drop vacuuming, no. I mean, they got other fucking problems, I guess. As long as they do something about the time pressure and the space pressure of all these area effects, it won't matter that much. I don't even care that much that it happens. I just think it's laughable that they're like, that's not how ARPG should work. And then you look at the rest of the fucking game and you're like, really? I guess so. The depth meter, sure, that'll be a nice thing to see. Performance, the most important thing in this whole thing to me. I don't even care if the league mechanic sucks for the next 3 months, right? I really wouldn't. I don't even hate it that much right now because the orbs are pretty fun, and the simulacrum was okay. I won't mind doing that again when I collect the splinters, although 300 seems like a lot. This is killing the league for me, though, and it's killing the league outside of Delirium too. So this is enemy number 1 right now. They have to fix this. And then visibility, which is a big problem too. I actually am enjoying the league. It's not that I don't hate any of this stuff, but there's a lot of problems, and some of their rationalizations for the stuff that they wrote here really ring hollow to me. I don't see a lot of receipts of what some of what they're saying here. But I'm hoping that we see some of these changes sooner than later. The performance thing has got to happen. Please, God, fix this performance issue, because Delirium can suck, but the whole game sucks right now with performance issues, and the sooner that gets fixed, the better. Anyway, I've ranted long enough. I'm going to probably eat a little bit and then get some sleep. I'll probably be back tomorrow at the same time for the stream as I was earlier. I don't think we'll have any more late streams. I will probably be out Thursday, though, because I'm going to have to go to an airport, make a drive. So I don't think I'll be able to stream it all that day. As usual, thanks for everybody for coming by the stream. I had a good time tonight. If you want to watch me live, I usually stream around like 2 to 3 p.m.-ish, 2 p.m. Pacific, twitch.tv/WallachTV. And I'll leave links to the Discord, too, if you want to jump in there, if you don't see me online, but you need some help with something. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here, guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Peace.